Hello and welcome to Jazz Guitar Chord-melody, Part 28. Hi, this is Mike Hayes, and in this video we'll be looking at secondary dominants, secondary diminished, and how to apply these concepts to our chord-melody project. But before we get started, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you'll be notified just as soon as our latest videos are available. Okay, let's get started. This video is really about developing the arranger's ear, because no matter which way you look at it, there comes a certain point in your development as a jazz guitarist where your attention must move away from the technical aspects of playing the guitar to the quality of the ideas that you're going to play on the guitar. Composers and arrangers have known about a very important harmonic and compositional tool called the secondary dominant, and they've used this device to help put their own musical thumbprint on their compositions. Before we jump into our examples, I just want to clarify a few points. All our examples initially will be shown in the key of C. Our chords will all be shown as scale tone 7th chords, meaning they'll be 4-note chords. Like many good ideas, the concept is really quite simple. Firstly, let's go to our circle of fifths. Now we already know that in the key of C, G7th resolves to C major. So we could call that our primary secondary dominant chord. Now the way I'm thinking about this circle of fifths is that I'm viewing it as a clock face, and I'm thinking of it as a clock that has a single hand, and that single hand moves in an anti-clockwise manner, and that produces a type of musical gravity, if you like. So if I take the single hand of this clock and move it to the G, in this case it'll be G7th, and I'm thinking that this single hand is on a tight spring, so that hand will want to go over and move to C. It'll want to resolve on the C chord. Let's go back to the circle of fifths and see what dominant 7th chord we could use to introduce D minor, the second chord in the key of C. So here's our D minor, and of course we're using D minor 7th. And we do exactly the same thing that we did before. We just move the hand down 1 from the D minor, and we'll see that that's the note A. So we're going to turn that A into an A7th, and then once again that single hand with the tight spring will want to resolve to D minor. So the secondary dominant for D minor in the key of C is A7. Using exactly the same principle, I'm going to find the secondary dominant 7th chord for E minor. And I go to the circle of fifths, and once again I look for my target chord. Here's the E minor. Move the hand down 1 more, and there's my B7. So B7 will want to resolve back to E minor. So the secondary dominant for E minor is B7. Likewise, C7 is the secondary dominant for the F chord. D7th is the secondary dominant for G, and E7 is the secondary dominant for the A minor. Now the idea behind secondary dominance is to create a feeling of a tonic key. In other words, the A7th moving to the D minor is to give us the feeling that we're moving to a new key. And since only major and minor chords can be tonic chords, we don't create any secondary dominant for the diminished chord. Now, since our current chord melody project is in the key of F, here's a chart showing you the secondary dominants for the key of F. And now we're going to practice these ideas on the guitar. Now, some of the chord shapes might be difficult for you to play. Simply drop them an octave lower. The reason why I'm presenting them like this is so that you can hear the whole range of the scale, rather like you would on a piano. So here we go. These are the scale tone 7th chords for the key of F. Now here's the same scale, only this time I'm including the secondary dominants. You'll notice a little arrow showing the secondary dominant moving to its target chord. Remember, we're not playing the diminished chord. As you play and listen to these new chord sequences, you'll start recognizing some familiar sounds. For example, here's the first 3 bars of Hoagy Carmichael's Georgia. I'm sure you'll recognize this secondary dominant. Here's another 8-bar progression that features a secondary dominant. You might recognise it as the first 8 bars in Girl from Ipanema, Watch What Happens, Take the A Train, Exactly Like You, and many other jazz tunes. And now let's practice our scale tone 7th chords, this time with the progression descending. And again, look for the secondary dominant chords introducing the original scale tone 7th chords. And now we're going to introduce the idea of a secondary diminished. You remember in an earlier session where we said if you lowered any note in a diminished 7th chord, you would end up with the dominant 7th. So in this instance, we're going to work the other way around. I'm going to start with a D 7th shape, like the one we have on the screen, and if I raise the note D, upper semitone, I end up with a diminished 7th chord. And of course, that diminished 7th chord could be called F sharp diminished, A diminished, C diminished, E flat diminished. And basically the idea is that we're going to use diminished chords in place of the dominant 7th chords. And these diminished 7th chords will be functioning as dominant 7th chords with a flattened 9th. if we have a look at the chord sequence on the screen, you'll see I have F major 7th moving to F sharp diminished. And the notes in that F sharp diminished are exactly the same notes as D7 flat 9, except it doesn't contain the note D. And this is the same situation all the way along that progression. The second bar we have G minor 7th and we have G sharp diminished, and that G sharp diminished contains the exact same notes as an E7 flat 9, only it doesn't contain the note E. So if I have a look at that chord sequence now, if I have a look at the bass notes, it almost creates a chromatic scale. F major 7th moving to an F sharp diminished, moving to a G minor 7th, then a G sharp diminished. So it creates a smooth set of chords. Let's practice them on the guitar. Again, some of you might recognise some of the chord progressions from tunes such as Birth of the Blues and Making Whoopee. And now here's that progression backwards. Take note of how the diminished chords introduce the scale tone 7th chords. Well, that's it for this session, folks. We'll be developing these ideas further in the next video, but if you've got any questions or comments, don't forget to pop them in the comments section below the video. And as always, I look forward to catching up with you again next time. Bye for now.